Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Let me welcome you at Ambrela Development Forum 2025. We are living difficult times with various crises, conflicts unrolling all around the world. The global partnerships are being tested, and the role of humanitarian and development aid is becoming more and more important. Ambrela Development Forum aims to create a platform for high-level policy dialogue and cross-sector collaboration. That's why we are here, and I'm glad that we will be able to focus on three main topics: new realities in development cooperation, new challenges in humanitarian aid, and Ukraine in transition. All of these are pressing problems that Europe and the whole world is facing, and I'm glad that you are here, and hopefully you will enjoy listening and engaging in discussions with our distinguished guests and their up-to-date analysis and answers. Ambrela Development Forum is an international conference organized by the Platform for Development Organizations, Ambrela. Let me express our gratitude, our thanks to our strategic partners. These are Central European Initiative, United Nations Development Program, Slovak Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs, Program Slovensko, co-financed by the European Union, representation of European Commission in Slovakia, British Embassy to Slovakia, and Embassy of Canada to Slovakia. So once again, thank you very much. We also have partners who supported our event, and our gratitude also goes to them. Faculty of Arts, Comenius University, People in Need, Polish Humanitarian Action, Otvorená hra, Institute for Public Affairs, Inclusion Systems GmbH, and media partner is Euractiv.sk. So once again, thank you very much. My name is Eva Mihočková. I am editor-in-chief of Foreign Policy Media website run by Slovak Foreign Policy Association, and I have the honor to be the master of ceremony today. Now, let me ask Daniel Kaba, Executive Director of Ambrela, for opening remarks.
Hello, good morning. I hope you can hear me. Perfect. I'll try to be short, but I'm very happy to see also familiar faces today at the 4th edition of Ambrela Development Forum. Dear Excellencies, colleagues, partners, and friends, it's great to see you, many of you, and also new people coming in who keep hope alive in a world that sometimes, or many times, feels short of hope. Today, we got people from roughly more than 20 countries here in this room, not only from Central Eastern Europe, but also from our dearest colleagues from Ukraine, from East Africa, from Middle East, but also from European institutions, and of course, our partners from the foreign mission representations in Slovakia. This year, our theme is A World in Transition, Reclaiming Global Partnership Through Dialogue. And that's exactly what this forum is about. Not just rebuilding, which is necessary, but also renewing. Renewing trust, renewing systems and lives. We know you are all here ready to engage, and we are particularly excited about that because we've changed the structure of our conference quite a bit over the year. So it is designed to be much more interactive, more focused, and more about actionable connections in order to turn conversations into more cooperation. Why? Because talk alone is not enough anymore. We all know that. But here I would like to share with you with an adage or saying by a famous playwright, Eugene Ionesco. Once he said, "Only words count and all the rest is idle chatter. Isn't that strange, right, at the first glance? Only words count, and all the rest is idle chatter. Linguistic habits are often important symptoms of unspoken sentiments. UNESCO was right. Words count. They are the symptoms. They are on the surface, the diagnosis and the blueprint. But the idle chatter begins when words, the big ideas, the strong commitments and sentiments and small proposals we share never move beyond the microphone. That's the difference we are trying to eliminate. We are here to ensure that the sentiments we hear are not unspoken, but acted on. We are also meeting at times of major global shifts, and I don't need to enumerate and share with you different global crises around us. It's interesting that Pope Francis, even in 2015, said that we are not living in an era of change, but a change of era. And we can feel the change everywhere in our work, in the world around us. There are calls, numerous calls. We remember the Istanbul World Humanitarian Summit, right? And so on and so forth. Humanitarian reset. There is a new financial framework of the EU now going to the Council. There's a global gateway enrolling. This year we experienced USAID freeze. But of course, and there are in neighborhood of the European Union conflicts. After the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. Also the overlooked conflict in Sudan. We got also people from Sudan today with us here in the room. Unfortunately, at the same time, liberal democracies, as we know them, and civil society is under pressure. Yes, unfortunately, I have to say, also here in Slovakia. But that's why it matters even more that we come together today as partners to show that cooperation and solidarity are not just words. I truly believe there are choices. You also made a choice to come today to Bratislava to meet your friends and new partners. You could have stayed home, you could have prioritized other asks, other events. Ukraine today will form quite a part of our discussions, but not only. We would like to also move beyond the concrete and steel, which is necessary and important, and a bit to education, mental health, veterans, human rights, the soft element, the soft tissues of each and every society in the world. But not only that, we're going to talk about development cooperation and humanitarian aid also from the perspectives of East Africa, Middle East, and elsewhere. Here in Central Europe, we might also have something to put in. Our experience of rebuilding, reforming, and integrating. I'd also like to, again, welcome all of you here. Please take the opportunity to network, to talk to each other. And I would also like to thank to our strategic partners. They were already mentioned in the introduction by Eva. But I would also like to thank to my team, even now at the very beginning, and not only after this event. So thank you very much to my wonderful team. I think they can hear your applause. So let me challenge you. Find one new idea, one new partner during today, and take things forward after you leave Bratislava. Thank you for being here, and welcome to Ambrela Development Forum 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana, and thank you for your work. Thanks to you and to all your team for investing energy and a lot of work into organizing this event every year. I'm really glad that we also have Maurice, Makoloo, Ambassador Designate of Kenya to Slovakia with us, and I would like to invite him to join me on the stage for opening remarks.
Mr. Daniel Kaba, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to share warm greetings from a land where the sun never stops to shine. Good morning from Kenya. Good morning. Exactly. It is a good morning. Where I come from, they say that a good day is seen in the morning. And it is a good day when kinsmen, us, from government, civil society, private sector, come together. It is a good morning. And so we show it energetically and in our smiles. Allow me also to extend and share greetings from my government that is very grateful for the invitation that was shared to our Prime Cabinet Secretary and the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs. Kenya greatly values its relationship with the Slovak Republic and the people of this country and appreciates the strides that we have made and continue to make together. Before I share a few thoughts, let me declare with humility that I have had the privilege of serving in the private sector, in civil society, in philanthropy, and in government. And therefore, some of the thoughts that I share are an aggregation of some of the experiences that I have had from all these sectors that I've been privileged to serve in. The government of Kenya immensely values civil society. This is stated very clearly in our law, including the Constitution of Kenya, enacted legislation, policies, and practices. Article 10 of the Constitution of Kenya, for example, enunciates what are called national principles and values of good governance. And these include transparency, democracy, national unity, among others. To my government, civil society, therefore, is a critical partner in our development journey. At the heart of civil society and government, respectively, is about service delivery to the people. It is about common but differentiated responsibilities. Everyone has a role to play. And this requires us, as part of the theme of this Ambrela Development Forum 2025, to have the humility to recognize that everybody brings something that the other person does not bring, and that together we make something much better. Because when all is said and done, service to the people is also about legitimacy. It's about credibility. It is about accountability. Because we gain legitimacy when we respond to the felt needs of the people. Our experience from Kenya, therefore, is that civil society organizations that have been deemed legitimate have been deemed so on account of their response to the felt needs of the people. That they are organic and issues-driven and demand-driven. And I think as we talk about dialogue, as we talk about moving the needle forward, it is about how do we remain legitimate at a time when some of these concepts are being questioned. It is about accountability. When civil society operates, at its core, the assumption is that it is responding in a felt way to what is a need in the in society. Civil society sometimes receives resources from governments, either of the country where it is situated, like Kenya, or from other governments, like our civil society have received from the Slovak aid and in other places. It is about being accountable for those resources that also makes it available to serve again tomorrow, because it is demonstrating in action that it can be a trusted partner. Yes, that word, trust. For us to have a sustained engagement, there has to be trust. And trust means, on the other hand, competence. That civil society is competent, that government is competent enough in terms of its regulation and promotion of civil society activities. It is about both sides doing what they must do to deliver. Friends, a time like now also invites us to reflect on whether civil society space or the civic space is shrinking on account of certain actions of government or governments, or it is shifting or expanding. I want to posit that all these three things are happening at the same time. There are ways in which civic space is shrinking, because when, for example, access to information is limited, then there is a shrinking that is happening. But because civil society is also responding and growing organically, such as in my country that now has 47 counties, it means that civil society is growing in these counties. And in that sense, it is expanding and also simultaneously shifting away from the national conversation to the local level conversations where there is a felt need of the people. And so as we speak about the space of civil society, I would encourage us to not just think about ways in which it is getting smaller, but I also encourage us in ways in which it is expanding and it is also shifting. With technology, civic space is also shifting and expanding, because we can do a lot more mobilization, a lot more advocacy through the support of technology than we could do previously. So embracing technological space is also a way in which civic space has expanded and also shifted to the benefit of governments and civil society. I want to end with two things. One is an appreciation of demographic shifts in the world. Africa, as we speak, is home to about 1.5 billion people. The median age is 19. By the year 2050, Africa will be home to 2.5 billion people. Out of the 10 billion people in the world, that means Africa will have a quarter of the population of the world. This is a workforce. These are innovators. These are actors. It therefore means that as we speak, we have an opportunity to bridge, to have a stronger dialogue between Africa and Europe, between Africa and the rest of the world. These actors, this young population that see the world very differently, that see a more hopeful world, that indeed have the resources, the will, and the justification to co-create a new world, is ready to partner with the rest of the world, and certainly with Eastern and Central Europe. And this is where I want to end by reminding us of a quote from one of Africa's authors, Chinua Achebe, when he quotes a bird. And he says, Eneke the bird says that since men had learned to shoot without missing, it had learned to fly without perching. Meaning that we've got to be innovative. Some of the tools of civil society, of government, the ways and means of our work may have served us very well in the days gone. But those tools may no longer be suited for the world we need to co-create, for the partnerships we need to build, for the dialogues we need to have. May we have the courage and the strength to innovate without losing the principles of engagement. That is how my government sees the way forward, the way to build a stronger partnership between civil society and governments, the way to make the society better tomorrow than it is today. Thank you and congratulations on Ambrela Development Forum 2025.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for your inputs and also for the positive energy that you brought into this morning. I guess that we all need it. To conclude the opening remarks, I would like to invite Ambassador Yurii Mushka, who served as Ambassador of Ukraine to Hungary, Republic of Korea, and the Slovak Republic, and currently holds the position Deputy Secretary General of Central European Initiative. Your Excellency, Mushka, please.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. It's an honor to speak to you today on behalf of Central European Initiative at a moment when development cooperation is being redefined. The familiar framework that once guided us, the predictable cycles of funding, the clear lines between donors and recipients no longer reflects the world we live in. Today, we face a new reality, a world shaped by overlapping crises, new geopolitical tension, and shifting centers of influence. The question is not whether we adapt, but how we adapt, and what principles will guide us through this transformation. At CEI, we see this as a time not of decline, but of renewal, a resource revolution that calls for smarter, more inclusive and value-driven cooperation. The European Union, together with the United Nations and the regional partners, like our initiative, plays a vital role in shaping this change. But our instruments, whether it's the multi-annual financial framework, the global gateway, or development funds must evolve to meet today's complex needs. It is not only about the size of our budget, but about how effectively we align resources with real priorities: sustainability, resilience, and human dignity. And this brings me to one of the defining strengths of Central Europe: our lived experience of transformation. Our region knows what it means to rebuild institutions, to reform systems, and to restore trust. We have learned, sometimes the hard way, that sustainable development requires not only funding and infrastructure, but also vibrant, independent civil societies. Civil society is a lifeblood of resilience. It connects institutions with communities, principles with practice, and policy with people. Across our region, NGOs and community actors continue to operate under growing pressure, political, financial, and social. Yet, they persist. They innovative, they build bridges, they make our society stronger. At CEI, we are proud to support them through the Cooperative Fund Know-how Exchange Program and partnerships that encourage dialogue, inclusion, and participation. And of course, we cannot speak about transformation without speaking about Ukraine. Ukraine's journey from relief to renewal is one of the most profound challenges and opportunities of our time. Reconstruction cannot be limited to bricks and roads. It must include the rebuilding of trust, of healing of trauma, and restoration of social fabric. Local civil society actors are essential in these efforts. They are the ones closest to people, delivering support, promoting transparency, and nurturing hope. Central Europe stands with Ukraine, not only in solidarity, but in partnership. We bring lessons from our own transitions, we share institutional know-how, and we understand that true resilience is built from the bottom up. So, as we look to the future of development cooperation, let us embrace three guiding ideas. Principles before policies. Our action must be grounded in solidarity, accountability, and respect. Partnership before projects, because transformation is not achieved through isolated intervention, but through shared ownership. People before procedures, because development is not about systems alone. It is about lives, communities, and futures. The Central European Initiative believes that by combining the strengths of EU, the UN, and regional actors, and by empowering civil society as a true partner, we can turn today's challenge into tomorrow's opportunities. This is what development cooperation must mean in 21st century. Not charity, but cooperation. Not hierarchy, but partnership. Not a short-term aid, but a long-term transformation. Let us build together a Europe and a world that learns, adapts, and leads with empathy and courage. Thank you.
Thank you for your words, Your Excellency. Today we have prepared a rich and extensive program for you. You can follow the main plenary sessions right here in the main Moises Hall, or you can choose from separate sessions such as speed dating or grant writing workshop, which will take place in separate rooms called auditorium. You will find them easily by following the arrows from the atrium. And be sure to be on time if you choose to attend those separate events, because there won't be probably enough places for everybody unless you have registered in advance. In case you still won't have enough in the evening, I hope that you will join us also for our evening session called Night Owl Session, starting at 9 o'clock p.m. at Umelka Pub, which is just across the street nearby, and you will have a chance to go on, continue with your discussions or networking with a glass of beer or wine in a much more informal atmosphere. But now let's move on to our first plenary session centered on development aid. We will explore how the EU and UNDP roles are changing, what could be the contribution of Central and East European countries to this new development scene, and how can civil society get a stronger role in the EU's global gateway strategy.
Now, can you hear me? Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this first plenary of this year's Ambrela Development Forum. Our session is titled New Realities and Development Cooperation, as you heard from Daniel, and that captures the kind of discussion that we need. We've heard already from our esteemed speakers, but we are in a time when global development cooperation is being reshaped by deep structural shifts. Financing gaps are widening, new geopolitical players are emerging, and traditional assumptions about donors and partners are being tested. As Pope Francis put it, and we've been reminded, we are living not in an era of change, but in a change of era. And our role is to navigate and steer that change wisely, keeping people, planet, and purpose at the center. In this context, the EU, the UN, and civil society organizations are re-examining what effective, principled development cooperation looks like. Our aim this morning is to be open and constructive, to look honestly at the tensions between interests, values, and partnerships, but also to find where new forms of cooperation are already working. So first, let me introduce the four panelists. I'll do it in the order in which I'm going to put the questions, the first question. So Erika Gerretsen, Director of Human Development, Migration, Governance and Peace at the European Commission's Directorate General for International Partnerships. Erika, I understand you oversee the EU's work on human development and governance, and you have been closely involved in shaping the Global Gateways approach to people-centered investment. Next, Steliana Nedera, who heads the EU Foreign and Development Policy team. Sorry, am I saying? Yes, here we are. Director of the UNDP Regional Hub. Yeah, it's a good one, isn't it? Steliana, sorry, Director of the UNDP Regional Hub in Istanbul, where you lead UNDP's work across Europe and Central Asia. Alexei, you are actually the head of the EU Foreign and Development Policy team at the European Centre for Development Policy and Management, or Policy Management, ECDPM for short. And Jan, bear with me here, Jan Mrkvička, Director of Relief and Development at People in Need in Prague. Jan brings a grounded field perspective, working in contexts where major investments meet the realities of local governance, civil society, and communities. So with that framing, let's turn to our discussion. I'll begin with the first round of questions for each panelist, asking you to reflect on how your institutions are adapting to these new realities and how we can ensure that development remains both principled and effective in practice. You have roughly 4 minutes, and I'll give you a signal when 30 seconds remain, if you will forgive me for doing that. So, Erica, beginning with you. The Global Gateway has brought an investment logic to EU development cooperation, framed as both value-based and interest-driven. How do you see that balance in practice, and what space do you see for civil society organizations to help ensure these investments are genuinely sustainable and inclusive, including in more fragile contexts? Thank you.
Thank you, Floris, for the question, and good morning to you all. It's a great pleasure for me to be here and represent the European Commission in this distinguished panel, and I'm very glad to speak in front of such a wonderful audience in such a beautiful room. So thanks a lot to the organizers for hosting us and for hosting and organizing this very timely conversation. I think the opening speeches have already set the scene really well. And this event is actually taking place in a very interesting moment, as we are just closing the Global Gateway Forum, which took place in Brussels last week, and where 15 heads of states, mostly from sub-Saharan Africa, were present, together with President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and my Commissioner, Josef Sikela, to host this debate about the scaling up of the Global Gateway. And I think that the Global Gateway has the word partnership at its core, and that's really what I want to focus on. Indeed, as has been said also in the introductory remarks, we are moving away from this donor-recipient relationship towards this partnership relationship. And it is not for nothing that my Director General used to be DG for Development Cooperation, and already 3 years ago we moved to this new name, International Partnerships, which exactly has in it what we want to do, building partnerships with the private sector, building partnership with civil society organizations around this cooperation that we are having, obviously, with all the partner countries around the world, in sub-Saharan Africa, obviously, but also in Latin America, Central America, the Caribbean, Asia, Central Asia, the Pacific, as far as my DG is concerned. So that's really the moment where we need to bring together all these partners. We live in this geopolitical environment that I'm not going to go into much detail, which leads us also to being more geo-economic in our perspectives. And being geo-economic means building stronger capacity to hold our own sovereignty, but we cannot be alone in this world, and building these partnerships is absolutely essential. And this is why we are turning to this more mutual interest based approach, where we are having this conversation with our partner countries, and I'm really glad to have Kenya represented today, and very inspired by your words, Ambassador. That indeed this partnership between Europe and Africa is absolutely crucial. And because of the demographics, because of the long relationship between Europe and Africa, and because of all the potential and this demographic potential that is there, and this youth that is there in sub-Saharan Africa calling for progress and for homemade growth. Homemade growth means private sector investment. And that's really clearly at the core of what has already been in the Addis Ababa agenda on financing for development 10 years ago, and that we are continuing working on, engaging with private sector, ensuring that private sector has the right conditions in place to invest is part of our core priorities. This means private sector investment means job creation, and that's really what it is about. But while we are supporting private sector investment, again, in a mutual interest-based approach, it's very important to keep the right principles in place. And in this, I think that this will be very short now. Okay. So the principles are very important. So the Global Gateway is an investment strategy which is values-based. And I will be happy to come back maybe later on in the conversation about what I mean by, what we mean by values-based and how we roll out this values-based approach. Sorry for, I have too much to say.
Thank you. We'll come back as well with questions, I think, but thank you very much. Steliana, UNDP's new strategic plan for 2026 to 2029 has got governance as one of its 4 pillars. The others, let me look at are prosperity for all, they are rule of law, healthy planet, and crisis resilience. Prosperity for all, crisis resilience, and a healthy planet. And this is an indication that governance and rule of law and the way citizens engage with institutions will be in the focus of your work across the world in the next period. This matters, as underscored by last year's Nobel Prize in Economics. Development investments succeed when they rest on strong, transparent, and inclusive institutions. So I'm interested to hear, how is your strategic focus reshaping how UNDP works with governance and civil society actors in your region? Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is a great honor and pleasure to be here today and to learn as much as sharing around how the space of development action is changing and how the cooperation is also reshaped towards I think more ambitious goals in the future. The strategic plan of UNDP that was just approved at the end of August for the next 4 years, I think is showing clearly that we are looking into the future with keen interest, and we are changing a lot. In what ways? First of all, we are staying very focused on these 4 key pillars, and then we are adding to the 4 key pillars important accelerators. So we recognize the power of digital and AI as enablers, as drivers of positive change across all 4 thematic areas. We also recognizing the importance, the centrality of gender equality across all 4 pillars. And we are looking at the importance of sustainable finance, of financing mechanisms and financing flows that need to power the 4 pillars. They need to be focused on the important priorities in each of the countries where we're present, that we serve, to be able to accelerate positive change. The focus on governance, I think in particular, as this speaks, I think, most to the collaboration, the partnerships between institutions in the public sector, the civil society, and the private sector, and international organizations of different sorts and types, is, I think, for us, understood as a foundational element. It is about relations between different actors in the society. It is about making sure that there is an open public sphere where social contracts are forged, where citizens and communities can participate actively. And this is how our focus is going to stay in the next period in all the countries where we serve. This key thematic focus on an open public sphere as a foundational part of the work on governance. We also look keenly, along with, I think, all of us, as it was stated also in the opening remarks, it was said very well, at the complex transformations that we see today in the world, at the level of uncertainty that we see around, at the very, I think that the profound disruptions brought about by rapid technological change, by digital and AI, because it influences not only the economies, not only industries, but it influences the way governments can function, or they can pick up on what they choose to apply in the way they're delivering public services and how they regulate, what policies they are putting in place, as well as they're influencing the way the citizens are engaging with it. So we are talking to the we are talking to our partners in different ways. So we held with civil society organizations a policy dialogue in April this year in Brussels, where we spoke about the shrinking civic space, in particular in Europe and Central Asia, and we looked at the issues, how they are changing. And indeed, there's a growing constraint on the legislative side and on the ability of civil society organizations to work as they were. We also, and we are drawing recommendations from these conversations that we are going to apply to our own work, but we also to influence in how we engage and support civil society organizations. We have as well just held recently in Tirana training for civil society organizations on thinking and working politically, because we recognize that also our partners need to change quite quickly in the way they do work. So to quote just one way in how we are applying these new ideas into our partnerships, an example is the program Tadamon with the Islamic Development Bank, where we worked across the countries of the Organization of the Islamic Cooperation, supporting over 730 organizations to train in crowdfunding, to create a digital ID, to apply their digital skills and capability for attracting more resources in different ways for them to be able to deliver services in the communities. I will have more examples in the second round, but let me stop here. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Alexei, I'm going to turn to you now, if I may. Your recent analysis argued that EU development policy is facing what you call a trilemma between interests, values, and partnerships. As the EU prepares its new budget cycle with a possible merger of external instruments, what, in your view, would it take to maintain a credible development and human rights focus within the more strategic interest, investment-oriented model?
4 minutes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. I'll allow you some leeway.
Thanks, and thanks again for the invitation and the opportunity. This is indeed very timely. Maybe just a few words on this trilemma that we indeed have pointed out, but it's been there for a while. And essentially, the EU, and rightly so, is seeking to achieve simultaneously, all at once, the advancements of its own strategic interests through external action, the promotion and the defense of values, its own values, but also global values, and also the idea of mutually beneficial partnerships and responding to needs of partners. And each of these objectives is totally legitimate. The problem is that for a while the EU has been struggling to address them at the same time. And the current instrument, the NDP, Global Europe Instrument, was an attempt to try to reconcile the different tools, approaches the EU has to address those objectives. And we'll see what the next round of negotiations and the new instrument puts forward. But essentially, our analysis is indeed that the EU's institutional setup in terms of external action and its instruments are not fit for purpose. They really struggle to reconcile. And there's indeed a need to find a way to reconcile those three legitimate interests. I think in the purpose of the discussion today, how the EU moving forward can ensure that it is maybe more assertively advancing its own strategic interests in terms of economic competitiveness, in terms of defense, security, migration. There are many strategic interests which are now guiding the EU's overall political agenda. And I think three key points need to be made in order to ensure that in doing so, it does not lose sight of human development, civil society, governance, democracy, which usually are seen as more soft aspects of EU external action. The first one, our analysis shows, is that there is a need to update, to clarify the overarching strategic framework that guides EU external action. It is quite fragmented, and some would say even outdated nowadays, doesn't correspond really to to the narrative that the EU is putting forward in terms of this more interest-driven cooperation. So there's a need indeed to update, and in doing so, to, I would say, assess more clearly what are the objectives, more clearly, more honestly. The risk, if we don't do that, is that EU external action in the future is driven by short-term interests, be there economic interests, security interests, migration, and then loses sight of its more long-term type of approach that development cooperation is about. So I think that's the first point. The second point, I think, in order to make sure that the EU stays committed to governance, human rights, etc., there's a need, including in the next generation of instruments, in the new policy framework, there's a need for some safeguards. I think it's not all about talking the talk and having a nice rhetoric around values, partnerships, etc. It's important to carve that in stone in the regulation as well. This can be done, for instance, through dedicated envelopes or criteria that clearly require the EU to focus on these aspects. And I hear the Commission's approach, this is 360-degree approach, which we'll probably hear more later on, is about that. But I think there's really a need to carve that in stone, to ensure safeguards. And my third point is indeed that we talk a lot, and the EU talks a lot about mutual interest partnerships, mutually beneficial partnerships. And again, this might seem as empty words on paper, seems all fine, but the reality is that there are trade-offs to be made, tensions, and I think what we need to is really reinstate the value of genuine partnerships and not moving towards transactional. So it's not about the EU positioning itself vis-à-vis China when it comes to establishing partnerships, but really showing that the EU is listening to its partners, is open, is transparent, making sure that partner countries and local actors, including civil society, do have a say in, for instance, the design of the pipelines of projects of global gateway, etc. So I think essentially these are three key points. At the end of the day, the EU will not manage to position itself as a trusted partner if precisely it doesn't manage to reinstall trust with its partners. And I think that's really a key issue. Partners, be they the governments, but also civil society at large. Thanks. And sorry, I went over time.
Thanks very much. I'm sorry, the time is quite constrained. And I want to check with you, Mario, if I may, also in fairness to the speakers, but to the room as well, what time do we need to stop, given that we started a little later? Which means 10:40? Perfect, thanks very much. Right, so I'll just tell you already, I'm going to give you a chance to expand a little bit on what you said, yeah? But before doing that, let me turn to Jan. Jan, you've worked directly on global gateway corridors, including Lobito. From that direct experience, what makes the difference between large-scale investments that truly benefit local communities, strengthen local governance and civil society, and those that leave them on the margins? So we're looking for your experience.
Hello, everybody, Your Excellencies, dear guests, and thank you for coming, for invitation, and also for organizing this interesting and very important panel. As you said, we as People in Need, we work for 15, 20 years in all three countries of the Lobito corridor, Angola, Zambia, and Democratic Republic of Congo. So we have quite hands-on experience of what's going on there. But let me start with one of the memory I have when I visited a few years back, Democratic Republic of Congo, South Kivu, visiting one of the hospitals. We work on fighting the malnutrition, and there was a newly constructed road, huge road, of course, obviously by Chinese. We stopped and I asked the people around, what's that, who built it, and how you benefit from that road, and they said, it was built by Chinese people without heart. They don't have a heart. We haven't seen any franc or penny coming to us. We are just seeing those people coming and leaving with all these minerals. And I think this is quite nice example how we might end up as the European Union with all these investments if we will not do things right. And I believe that you will explain how we plan to do things right. But to me, I'm quite sure that all these environmental, social, and governance aspects will be included into like the tendering and procurement and so on. We are pretty good in that, maybe sometimes on the paper. But the European standards are pretty high in this regard. But I think what we need, and I was really glad to hear from Mr. Ambassador from Kenya, his reflection on civil society and recognition of the government to the growing power and voice of the civil society in Africa or in Kenya, and I can confirm this from all the three countries we work on. So I think what is needed to really have a civil society as a partners from the very beginning. And we feel that some of the processes you are describing are not that inclusive if it comes to a civil society. So they should be there since the beginning, and they should be there also like during the implementation, playing the role of the watchdogs. We have the initiative, we call it Corridor Voices, trying to mobilize civil society actors in those countries, and maybe this could be in the future a platform for the dialogue between the European Union, investors, and civil society. But it is still not enough. I think we need a bit more. We are talking about the job creation, which is obviously like a great thing, but proper jobs are not without the proper skills. So we need to invest into the technical and vocational training institutions. We need to invest into like a creation of the green jobs. We need to invest into like young people to really take part of those investments and benefit from it. But it's still not enough. I think these huge investments, they also come with a lot of like a negative aspects, like when you have a lot of money in certain area, you have also a lot of like a negative risk of the negative things like drug abuse, prostitution, and so on. So again, I think our role and the role of the European Union should be to invest, to fund civil society projects, to help them to play this like a safeguarding role, protection, and so on. But this is still not enough, and I am happy to see Dr. Hugo Slim. I saw his a great presentation in DHAT conference in Dubai, and I hope that you will kind of do something similar here. So I recommend to everybody to attend. And he was talking about the places in need, like the concept. I'm sure he will explain. So I would maybe transform it or rephrase it into like a people, places with the opportunities. So we should really look at this Lobito corridor and other investments of the Global Gateway as places with the opportunities. And another part of it should be like an investment to the like small businesses to help like all communities to benefit from those investments. I think we can elaborate later on. My time is over, so thank you.
We were very good, actually. All of you are fantastic. Thank you. Jan, thank you. That was really very interesting and I think extremely practical in terms of the learnings that we've come. Erica, I'm going to give you some more time. We have roughly 3 minutes each. I know. But then there will be questions and answers, so you'll have a chance to respond. I'm going to turn it to 4 minutes, but then I'm afraid we'll be eating. Yeah, so go for that. And if you could speak also to the 360-degree approach, that would be great. Thank you.
No, absolutely. Thanks a lot. Really great discussion, and exactly the one we need to have now. So just maybe two things I want to really focus on. Indeed, the values-based approach of the Global Gateway, and therefore what we call the 360 degrees approach, and the role of civil society actors in doing this. Jan, the work that you've been doing now around the Lobito corridor, this is really exactly the type of analysis that we need from the civil society actors. And I think that really doing this kind of work on the ground, working and talking to the local civil society actors, identifying around an investments, what are the risks, what are the opportunities? Exactly the example, we build a road, what kind of impact does this have on the local communities? What are the security risks for women, for example, around such a corridor, but also what are the opportunities in terms of job creation? What are the risks for environmental degradation? What are the risks on child labor, for example, when talking about mineral resources exploitation? What are the fiscal and the macroeconomic consequences of a project in terms of macroeconomic stability and the fiscal implications again? This is what we call the 360 degrees approach, really looking at an investment and identify and analyze on the 360 degrees approach, again, the risks and the opportunities from an economic, environmental, social and human development viewpoint. In this, the human rights-based approach of the European Commission fully applies. So we continue applying this human rights-based approach to all the financing, funding that we are providing in the context of the Global Gateway. We are also continuing working along our principles on gender equality. You know that we have a gender action plan with a target of 85% of our actions that have to have a positive impact on gender equality. This policy, we remain committed to it, and we are implementing it also while we roll out the Global Gateway. Not only for our financing, but we also work with the development banks, the EIB, the EBRD, the European financial institutions and development banks, so that they also use the gender marker and that they also follow the same approach. Same thing on the inequality marker. We have introduced 2 years ago the inequality marker. We are marking and identifying the impact on inequality of each and every project. And this fully applies to what we do in the context of the Global Gateway. I recognize, however, that we need to formalize all this a little bit more. We have established and we have put on paper the concept of the 360 degrees approach, what it really means in terms of rolling it out, implementing it, monitoring it, does require some more work, and this is something that we are currently working on. Now, what is the role of civil society actors in this? First, just to remind that we have established, so around the governance of the Global Gateway, there are a number of, there is a business advisory group. We also have established a Global Gateway CSO and local authorities platform that is sort of headquarters based. But at the end of the day, what really is important to me is, again, what is happening on the ground, what is happening in the countries around these Global Gateway flagships at country level, or if it is multi-country. And working and empowering the local civil society actors and listening to their voice, listening to their positions, and to their analysis is very important. We are doing this in Bolivia, for example, also talking to the indigenous peoples around, again, critical raw material, lithium investments. We are doing this in Bangladesh when we are investing on value chains. This is important. And again, this is something where there is progress that is being made. We are now currently working on the 4th generation of civil society roadmaps. All our delegations around the world develop civil society roadmaps whereby they identify which are the priority topics that we want to engage with civil society actors on. So this work is currently being done. And it is true that for EU delegations, all this shift to the Global Gateway is a major transformation. It's a big change. And engaging with new civil society actors at country level on new topics and around specific Global Gateway flagship is a new approach to the dialogue with civil society actors, and this is what we are now starting with, again, the 4th generation of civil society roadmaps. For me, the role of the civil society locally is absolutely essential because it is indeed fully part of this values-based approach of the Global Gateway, and without the civil society actors and without the voice of civil society actors locally, we will not have the possibility to have this strong values-based approach, respecting the rights, respecting the appetite also for civil society actors to work on certain dimensions of our investment. And this is where the European offer is different. And this is a strong commitment by my commissioner. And I think that we really need to take this opportunity to engage more with civil society in a constructive manner. This is a time for partnership, and this is a hand from us to have this constructive partnership with civil society at global level, sort of headquarters level, but most importantly, in fact, at country level. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'm going to hand directly over to Steliana. I'm not going to put a question to you because I believe that you sort of got paused quite far while you were in mid-flow. So let you elaborate.
Thank you very much. Actually, I would like to contribute to the conversation around how to make sure that people benefit most of these opportunities, of the investments and the big trade and development agendas and the support for private sector to grow. We have examples from our partnerships and cooperation, which we believe can be looked at and scaled up more. So in the Western Balkans, we are working together with the European Commission on the regional local democracy program, which has implemented models of municipalities and civil society organizations working together to identify priorities, and then the municipality awarding grants to civil society for implementation of those priorities in the community, which looks at service provision, but also helping the community come together. So different functions of civil society, which are supported actually by the municipality. From a point of view of capacity building and training and the type of relationship that is set up, it actually helps put in place a sustainable mechanism for the local governments to be able to leverage the power of community organizations, of civil society organizations around, and make sure that the community thrives. Similarly, I would like to recognize a fantastic model from our partnership with Slovakia. With the Ministry of Finance, we have a long-standing work on strengthening public finance management, but also an innovative stream of work around city experimentation. So in Plevlja, in Montenegro, the community was supported to come together and come with a new vision as part of also the demining process. So the civil society organizations played a very active role in that visioning process, identifying how the community could reinvent itself, what type of new business opportunities, new jobs can appear when the mine is closing and so many jobs are lost. So that vision also created a lot of new project ideas that, of course, led towards further agglomeration of funding for implementation of that vision. In city experimentation, we have another great example where we apply new tools to engage young people, civil society organizations, and city administrations to come up with new visions for the future. So it's a great example that maybe kind of would be a good way also to convey it so that it can be scaled up in different parts of the world. I would like to close with a thought on what's next for civil society organizations. Because this type of challenges, constraints, and complexities are coming across very clearly in discussions that we are having. We are all in development cooperation, all type of partners, I think, are facing similar challenges of needing to come up with the new what and the new how, or a thought of what are we doing so that we're staying relevant and how we're doing it. We are bringing to the table support for definitely capacitating in terms of digital and AI use for civil society organizations, for creation of digital identities, for an ability to engage more strongly in the digital space, looking at aspects also of privacy and security, but looking at aspects of mobilizing financing for their work in new ways, applying also alternative finance. Crowdfunding as an example I gave previously, but I think we can go much more beyond that. So I think that the future is how we shape it, and we are very much forward-looking and want to continue working with everyone.
Thank you very much. I'm going to jump to Jan, if I may, and then to you, Alexei. So I'm very reassured to hear about the high importance that we're hearing of civil society engagement, and in particular local civil society engagement in these settings. Jan, I wanted to hear from you, if possible, where you would see the possibilities for that kind of engagement with the delegations, etc. Also bearing in mind that we're looking at a quite severe shrinkage, apparently, of the number of delegations that we're having. How can we make sure that the connections between civil society, between local populations is happening at the right moment?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and it's great to hear that European Union, our Commission and delegations are considering all these aspects, but like how we can contribute. I think we can kind of build concrete, practical examples, because things might end up on the paper. It might end up as a nice proclamations, but what we need to kind of turn it into the practice, and we are one of those actors being on the ground. And I think the approach could be like very practical, like with every investment, coming through this global gateway initiative or being relabeled as a global gateway. It's not that important. It should be kind of the civil society human rights mirror of this investment. And we shouldn't be, we have already 1 year working on the assessments in this Lobito corridor, having a few ideas or a paper on that, so we can offer all of this. But I think, and in this paper, we are also talking about the risking of the investment. But I don't like this expression that much. I think we shouldn't take it just through the lenses of the private sector engagement and investments and so on, and then persuade investors that they need civil society to de-risk their investment. It should be responsibility of the donor and of the initiator to make sure that there are two sides of the coins in the same place. So I think there should be really, with every investment, must be there the plan, how to engage civil society, how to make sure that this 360 approach will be applied. So one thing what we can offer, we can talk about this, but we can offer together with civil society actors, with local civil society and so on, concrete practical examples and build those pilot projects, how to approach it, and then look at it critically whether this works, because I see your point that it might be difficult to combine different interests and the different lenses. This should be our ability as citizens of the planet to combine more things. So I think it's doable, but we have to be critical and say it clearly, and also be accountable towards the civil society in those places.
Thanks very much, Alexei. I'm going to ask you, if you would, so two things. One is, with what you've heard today, do you have a sense that the mechanisms may be in place to look at that prioritization of what do you call it, the trilemma? And prioritization is probably the wrong word, but a balancing. And how would you, from also your policy management perspective, look at the elements that Jan was bringing in? So in particular about the mirroring of projects, of looking at not so much de-risking, but of how can we make this work by bringing in civil society. Thank you.
I think the Commission is not lacking processes, mechanisms to consult, and it has indeed a strong, I would say, framework to work with civil society. The roadmaps is a key feature here. I think practically it's also how the programming of EU funds is made, how and when local stakeholders are being consulted. So I think there's a lot that has been done, more can be done and improved. From what we hear also from the feedback from civil society, including local civil society. I won't comment on that. I think what really is, and maybe to be a bit provocative here, but in the room, I'm sure everyone agrees on the importance of advancing, promoting governance, civil society, democracy, human development in general. The reality is indeed that beyond that room, these are the people we need to convince, actually. And the development sector is we know, at a real moment of crisis. And I think the Commission, in that sense, is doing indeed its best to make a case still for investing in partnerships. And I think that's really something we should acknowledge, that the change of narrative, the change of approach, the putting more openly, more honestly that we are in this also for our own interests. I think that is important to still remain relevant outside the development community. I think that's really what needs to be done today. And if I bring that back to the work I'm doing at the moment on the MFF, which is the big process at the moment, and for the next 2 years certainly, I think that's also important to continue making a strong case for external action, development cooperation, principles and values-based cooperation. I think that's really important. Maybe one point here, because in that context and in advancing a more, I would say, investment-based approach to cooperation, the new actors that the EU and the Commission is trying to reach out to is private sector, businesses and investors. And I think really the relationship with them is key to strengthen, to forge. And that's those people whom we need to convince in changing their practices, their habits, the ways of looking at things, and indeed this more long-term approach. So I think that's really a step that needs to be further developed, is how not only we reach out, and the Commission and the EU reaches out to private sector and private investors, but then how you can make them come towards the values and the principles that are guiding development cooperation in general. So yeah, I will leave it at that.
Oh, sorry. I have mine. Thank you very much, Alexei. And I think there's an important point that you make that we do sometimes overlook, is that actually development aid isn't necessarily an easy sell at the moment. Yeah, and we do need to be aware of that. And at the same time, it's very important that we don't lose the knowledge, experience of the last many years of what makes development programming work well. With that, I'm going to turn to the room to see if we have any questions. I've got Slido here as well, but mercifully, because I find it very difficult to multitask, there are no questions on Slido that I can see. I can see two hands up. There's a lady roughly halfway down the middle. You may put your hand down, and Ineza. So if you would like to go first, and then Ineza. And I will take your questions and bundle them. But if you could say if your question is for a particular speaker, then that helps. Otherwise, I'll try to direct appropriately. Thank you. And we probably need to share a microphone. We're under control. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Thank you very much to Ambrela, firstly, for organizing this very important forum. My name is Lucia Kish. I'm representing Habitat for Humanity International, and it was really interesting listening to this panel. I have a question for Erika Gerretsen from DG INTPA. You mentioned the global gateway and the importance of, that it's an investment strategy. It's very important to work with the private sector, financial institutions, and development banks. But I would like to ask if you could elaborate more about working with civil society organizations and civil society actors, many of them that are presented and present in this room. So how can civil society actors participate, partner, and access funding from the Global Gateway? And if you could give some practical examples, maybe from Kenya, as we have the ambassador from Kenya here today. Thank you.
Thank you. A question around accessing funding. Ineza, you are next. So we have someone here thank you, in the front here. And Ineza, can I ask you, and everyone, the acoustics here are great in that direction, but hard in this direction. So if you could speak clearly and slowly, that would be great.
Thank you. I'm Ines Vaivere from Latvian National Platform for Development Cooperation. Thank you, UNDP, for sharing these inspirational examples of subgranting local NGOs, and also a workshop on thinking and acting politically, which is probably not the case in Europe sometimes. But my question is quite similar, actually. We are here presented local Latvian NGOs. And the question is, how do local NGOs who cooperate with local NGOs, for example, in Central Asia or Eastern Partnership region, can access Global Gateway? Are there any existing good examples from Central Asia or Eastern Partnership region of Global Gateway where local NGOs are engaged? Thank you. And it goes to Commission. Thank you.
Right, I think we're going to start with those two, and I think they're quite similar, or an extension of each other. Erika, the first question was around accessing funding, and the second, I think, is probably to both of you, is so there's the mechanisms of it, and then there's perhaps examples that are working. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot for those questions. Very interesting and valid, of course. So just to maybe clarify something that's The Global Gateway is a strategy. It's not an envelope in itself. So the envelope is what Alexei was mentioning, which is the Global Europe NDP envelope. So this is the money that the European Commission is in the funding that we are managing. And those principles of the current NDP instruments, so Neighborhood Development Cooperation Instrument / Global Europe, that's the financial framework we are working on and with until 2027. For the next MFF, indeed, the idea is to really go into, so we are moving away from the NDP acronym, which I think everybody will be very happy with. And we will only be using Global Europe, bringing all the external instruments together into one single instrument called Global Europe. So that's just to clarify that what Global Gateway does is that it takes part of the financing that we are managing under the NDP Global Europe and working together with member states, working together with development finance institutions, bringing along and collectively working on those Global Gateway flagships and co-financing investments with private sector, with the banks, with the member states, and locally also with the local partners and local actors. So just to clarify this, Global Gateway is not a specific dedicated envelope that you would need to tap into. Now, what does that mean in terms of access to finance for civil society actors? It means that the current model under which we are working, whereby in the NDP Global Europe envelope, we have a dedicated line for civil society organizations, which is managed centrally in Brussels, but also by the delegations. So the delegations, they maintain this capacity to manage their own calls for proposals for local civil society. And the purpose of the CSO roadmaps and the fourth generation that I was talking about is to again identify or maybe redefine the priorities that we want to give to the calls for proposals in the next 2 years. So from that perspective, that does not change. Then, of course, there is a lot of financing that goes to civil society actors through our indirect management delegated cooperation. When we work, ask a European Development Agency to implement a project on our behalf, then, of course, there would also be part of this financing that would then in turn be implemented by civil society actors. And the mapping that we have done and the analysis that we have done is that compared with the previous MFF, so far the financing that goes actually to civil society actors in the implementation of the NDP Global Europe financing is actually more important than it was in the previous MFF. So working with civil society and through civil society remains core in our business model. What I think is important indeed, and for you who are working here on the European-based civil society, is to identify the connections with the partner countries that you work with and with the local civil society that you work with. And in this, maybe I want to bring in a new feature that still is being developed, which is what we call the team nationals. So the team nationals are entry points in each member state that will establish the connection between EU member states and the Commission around Global Gateway investments, flagship investments. And I think that in this, then you as national platforms, it would be really interesting if you can, as those team nationals are being established, and not all member states have them as yet, but as soon as these are established, I think it would be interesting for you as national platforms to be connected to your team nationals, so you can also work with your national administrations on what it is that is being developed in terms of projects in partner countries that you are interested in. And I think that for that, I believe that civil society organizations from Central Europe, indeed building on these experience that Central Europe has gone through in the last 30 years, is a very interesting experience to share. And therefore, it's really a call for encouragement, actually, from my side, for civil society from this region in particular, to becoming more active in this dialogue with partner countries and with civil society actors in our partner countries. And I think that this is again, something that we can continue discussing on how we can facilitate that as well.
Maybe the question of examples from Central Asia, and I've got a couple more questions, so if you could be relatively brief, that would be
So the way UNDP works is that we have country-specific partnerships and programs of work which are really centered around what's important priority in the specific country. And in Central Asia, but also in many other countries in this region and globally, I think that we have frequent examples of work with civil society that is directed towards, let's say, voice, advocacy, representation, but also strengthening capacity for service provision or the organization being an important part of the community and working on a specific topic. In Central Asia, I think a couple of recent examples are where we are looking at particularly fighting gender-based violence, supporting women organizations, and working with also different stakeholders to address those issues. Important aspects around employment, around women empowerment, around engaging youth in the public space. But beyond and besides the country-based engagement, we have regional initiatives, and the examples that I provided today, they refer to the regional level work. These are envelopes that are engaging multiple countries, or they provide some models open to cross regions or big regions. And for us, the regionality is different. It's just purely for organizing UNDP's work around the world. The regional initiatives for Europe and Central Asia are managed from the hub in Istanbul, which I'm the manager of. And this is where we are really learning from what we have done so far, but also looking forward, trying to open more spaces for online capacity building. Like, for example, these days we are running a Future of Work Academy for youth people from across the region with speakers from the private sector, because we want to bring the best in terms of how the jobs are changing. What types of jobs will there be in the next 5 to 10 years? We also run an academy on blockchain. So we try to diversify our toolkit in terms of thinking forward.
Thanks very much. So it sounds like UNDP and your information sources are an important one for people to link in also in terms of these new projects. I've got several questions on Slido, and I'm going to, but they're not dissimilar to each other. So and they're for you, Erika, I'm afraid. So the overarching question is, what is the process of designing global gateway flagship projects? And I think the underlying question is, and how can CSOs get engaged? And the example was given of the Global Gateway Forum last week, where very few CSOs were part of the conversation.
Thank you. Thanks. So where to start? So indeed, the Global Gateway, the mandate for now on the Global Gateway is really to as we put it, to go from startup to scale up. And the purpose of last week's event was indeed to build on existing Global Gateway flagships and scale them up and increase investments around those Global Gateway flagships. I will not go into the detail of those Global Gateway flagships. There is a beautiful website that has been established for this, and you can find them on the website. And for now, the idea is really to stabilize our work around those Global Gateway flagships. So the Lobito Corridor, for example, is a very important one that we are investing in with other partners and obviously with the countries concerned, and where there is a very interesting and important role for civil society actors to play. But there are many other examples, and you will find them on the website. So I think that I mean, if I may, I would first try and concentrate on what exists in terms of flagships, and again see, and exactly as Jan was explaining, see what is the feedback from the local communities, from local actors, and how can we reinforce the values-based approach of these in the context of these flagships, investing in the skills, investing in jobs, investing in security, investing on the gender-based approach, women economic empowerment around those flagships, etc. So this is really for me the first thing. Really start from what exists already and build around this and seize the opportunities to make these offers better offers, more in line with what we want to do, this values-based approach. And then, in terms of generation of future investments, this is work that we will build on through various channels. Last week, during the Global Gateway Forum, there was the President and the Commissioner announced the launch of the Global Gateway Investment Hub, which again is supposed to channel private sector investments proposals from European private sector companies who want to invest in our partner countries. And as this process will start working, we will find the possibility to hook civil society actors in the consultations, and this is where I'm coming back to this Team Nationals principle that will play an important role. Another dimension and another point for me that is important is that the investments and the investments proposals also can come from our partner countries, and this is also where local civil society actors can play an important role in identifying potential for investments. We talked about the just energy transition process in some countries. Here again, these are processes that need a whole of society approach, and where civil society actors have a very important role to play. So for you as national platforms, I would say it's really to be connected to your national administrations, to identify also where your private sector has the potential to invest in our partner countries. I'm thinking, for example, of a sector that is completely that would be really a wonderful sector to invest in. This is really more something that I'm caring about, which is the care economy. The care economy, the care sector has a huge potential to create jobs for women, to also empower women in being active in the labor market more generally, and it has a huge GDP capacity potential. So these are the kind of sectors where there is a potential for growth. So how can we work together? How can we partner to make this type of investments together? So it's not like it's really the offer is there, right? So how can we all partner together, identify those potentials, and work on this together? And if you have ideas yourselves on the types of sector that you think we should be investing in, your ideas are also welcome in this context.
Thank you very much. I think that this is an important conversation to have and to have had. Because I think as CSOs, we were really wondering what are the entry points, where can we engage, where can we make sure that indeed all of the watchdog role, but also, excuse me, also the creative roles can come into play. So thank you for that. And we'd really like to continue that conversation with you. But we've run out of time. And I know that my organizers are getting stressed. So I'm not going to ask you what was the one takeaway that you would take away from this. Instead, I'm going to do a quick wrap up, if I may. So. But thank you for your reflections. If there's one thread that runs through this conversation for me, it's that principles and pragmatism have to move together. And we absolutely need the principles, and we need to be pragmatic. We must not lose sight of the primary purpose of development cooperation, which is to alleviate and ultimately eradicate poverty. We have to make sure that we leave no one behind. So when we talk about skills, we should also talk about basic education, primary education, secondary education, and so on. Whether we speak about governance, infrastructure, or climate finance, success ultimately depends on people, on citizens having a real say in shaping their societies and their future. And the real measure of success is whether people's lives are improved, especially those who are poorest and most vulnerable. Coming back to Pope Francis, as he reminds us, we are living not in an era of change, but a change of era. And as another Francis, Saint Francis might remind us, renewal always begins with humility and with attention to those who are most in need. Our task then is to make sure that development cooperation evolves with this new era, not by abandoning our principles, but by renewing them. Thank you to all the panelists and to all of you here for an honest and forward-looking discussion. And please now enjoy the coffee and the jazz break, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you.